Did Jessica Hyde confirm Jen McCabe's 5:07 a.m. call to Sister Coco?
Report on page 11, you list a 5:07:21 a.m. call to a Coco as outgoing, correct?
Correct.
Hello, and welcome back, roommates, to Alexa's room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, and we are not law enforcement. We are just people who enjoy a good slice of New York pepperoni pizza, unlike some people, apparently, in the Karen Reed case, or at least on the Commonwealth's witness list. But I digress, because we're just people who have opinions, right? People who have opinions about all things going on in the Karen Reed case, including the Commonwealth's digital forensics expert / resident Disney adult, Jessica Hyde, who did, in fact, nonchalantly, I might say, confirm that Jen McCabe placed an outgoing phone call at 5:07 a.m. to Sister Coco the morning of January 29th, 2022. Now, again, why is this significant? Well, that was just about an hour or so before her, Karen Reed, and Kerry Roberts rolled up to 34 Fairview.
That's what the phone registered. Very well. Now what I'd like to do is to turn to the phone of Jennifer McCabe.
Okay.
And that
She just looks so nervous. She's like, all right, what are you going to ask me now, Bobby?
is for your reports. You don't date your reports, so I can't give you a date, but it says
It's report 3, I believe, is what
exactly. It's 3.
Can I just say, though, like, what is it with these people and not dating things? You would think if you're putting together a report, it would be kind of important to, I don't know, include the date of said report and when it was created, because then you could just manufacture it and be like, oh, it was really written like 3 months ago or 3 minutes ago, or I'm like Ian Whiffen on a Sunday night before I'm about to testify and I'm deciding to play roller coaster with my car, my rental car, as I go up and down the imaginary hills by 34 Fairview to see if I can track any flights of steps with my iPhone. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
In your report on page 11, you list a 5:07:21 a.m. call to a Coco as outgoing, correct?
Correct.
Have you discussed that call with any member of the Commonwealth?
No.
She's like, should I have? Like, am I missing something? Did I miss that memo?
And again, this call is at 5:07 a.m. on January 29th of 2022, correct?
That is correct.
There is no duration listed for that call. And if you just follow my questions, if you can, yes or no, is that correct? There's no duration yet listed.
Correct.
So what I want to do is to also note that omission is not the only omission of durations from this report, or I'll state it differently, let me withdraw that. There is no population of the duration column for any call from 12:14:30 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, all the way through this 5:07:21 call, and you don't start listing durations until 8:59:34 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, and explainable. The artifact.
I understand
Yes.
Mr.
Okay.
Brennan can
Sure.
handle those on his redirect.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. This woman is literally like a Disney character. But I want to go back real quick because she says something interesting about the duration. So this isn't the only phone call that's missing the length of time this phone call allegedly took place. I mean, was it another butt dial? Are we going with the butt dial defense? I mean, anything is possible in this case, isn't it? But Bobby Alessi is giving this specific time frame from about, I believe he said, 12:13 or 12:14 a.m., January 29th, all the way up to about 8:50 a.m. the same day, the same morning, right?
There's not a population of duration of calls after numerous early calls and phone, as you call it, interactive phone activity. Nothing populated in this report until 8:59:34. That's correct?
Now, in case you missed her testimony last week, Alan Jackson had asked Jennifer McCabe about this mysterious 5:07 a.m. phone call to Sister Coco.
Karen Reed, Julie Albert, Tom Beatty. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
But you did make another phone call that morning that you left out of both of those statements, didn't you?
I'm not sure.
At 5:07 a.m., you called over to 34 Fairview, didn't you?
If it's in my phone record, then I must have.
It's in your phone records that you're aware of. Well, let me ask it a different way. You're aware that your phone records actually show that at 5:07, you called to 34 Fairview, Nicole Albert's phone, correct?
Correct.
It shows also that that call lasted 38 seconds, correct?
I'm not sure what it shows.
You actually spoke to your sister, Nicole, that morning?
I did not speak to my sister, no.
So that 38-second call went to voicemail?
I'm not sure. All I can tell you is I never spoke to my sister, Nicole, that morning prior to waking her up.
But you do acknowledge that you made a phone call at 5:07 to Julie Albert. I'm sorry, to Nicole Albert, your sister, over at 34 Fairview in those early morning hours, correct?
Yes, I learned after. When I'm first being questioned, it's days after. It was a chaotic morning. I remembered the waterfall, Julie, then Tom Beatty.
For goodness sake, she didn't even have time to brush her teeth. Give the woman a break.
Calling to my sister wasn't as important ingrained in my mind at that point. No.
And then you testified at a grand jury, not hours or days later. You testified at a grand jury months later, correct?
Correct.
And at that grand jury, you also left out the fact that you contacted your sister, correct?
There's nothing nefarious. I remembered who I called. I didn't go back and look at phone records.
I didn't say it was nefarious. Why would you use the word nefarious?
Because there's nothing about me calling my sister that is nefarious, and I feel like you're insinuating it might be, and it's not.
The only thing nefarious about that is the way that you're pronouncing nefarious as nefarious. Who does that remind you of but Hank the Tank Hanky-Panky Breenan? Special post sector you keep eyeballing every 5 seconds. I mean, when this came out last week, jaws were hitting the floor all over the world because, I mean, we had all heard about all the phone calls that Karen Reed had been making in the hours leading up to when they found John O'Keefe's body, or in the words of the great Yuri Bukwacki, John was dropped off on the lawn. But we haven't heard really too much about Jen McCabe's cellular activity despite the 2:27 a.m. Google search. And this 5:07 a.m. phone call that lasted 38 seconds that Jessica Hyde is trying to hide or omit from her report that is not dated is just one of 200 calls from January 29th to February 1st. You cannot convince me that those are all butt dials either, because you must have a very sore bottom. That must be a whole lot of cooking recipes you're swapping then, because they're just regular moms, right?
With regard to the iPhone of Jen McCabe, do you have any knowledge as to whether over 200 calls were auto-deleted on her phone? You analyzed it.
We can see that calls were auto-deleted. You're asking me if the number of, I just want to make sure I understand the question. If the number of calls that were auto-deleted, if that exceeded 200?
My question is, do you know whether there was auto deletions on Jen McCabe's phone? Do you know that?
I'm uncomfortable with the term auto deletions because I
about
don't know what
deletions?
what that is inferring.
Okay. Did you analyze her phone at all for deletions?
I analyzed her phone to see if there had been deletions of call logs, and what I found was that there were records that were removed by the system and not recoverable from that database, but were recoverable from biomes.
Understood.
She also confirmed what world-renowned blogger Sir Ian Whiffen confirmed for us all last week during his cross-examination about the 2:27 a.m. timestamp.
So, that demonstration, therefore, was created after Celebrite removed the 2:27:40 timestamp from all of its tool programs, correct?
No, incorrect. I mean, that demonstration I just provided was right now, it was live. Initially, when I did these tests, I did the same kind of experiment, the same type of testing back in late 2023, I believe. And after I did those tests and used that research, that is when Celebrite removed the timestamp.
That is when Celebrite removed them, or that's when you removed them from Celebrite. Celebrite's ability to do that. Now, ironically, after his testimony, I believe it was day 1 of his testimony, this is the second day of his cross-examination, Celebrite turned off their comments on the Twitter X's. Now, since then, they've enabled some of the comments, but not on their most recent posts last time I checked, so I thought that was kind of ironic. But he was hired around the same time that Jessica Hyde was, interestingly enough, which always kind of threw me for a loop because it's like, why do you need so many different experts to come up with a reason as to why this Google search never happened? To explain away a very simple and basic concept. Because essentially what you're saying is like, well, the sky might appear blue to you, but it's really not. And then it just goes into that whole like rabbit hole of a mind duck that'll just leave you feeling like you're in an endless loop of a David Lynch movie, and by the end of it you're like, do I even know what this movie was about? No, probably not, but here I am still thinking about it hours and hours later because my brain is completely numb.
Let me see if I can rephrase it. The demonstration that you just gave, when did you prepare it? The demonstration, not just the demonstration that you just showed on the screen. When did you create that demonstration on your computer?
Hey, again, I've been doing this demonstration for 2 years.
My question, again, is the demonstration you just gave.
Yes.
When was the last time you altered that demonstration?
Other than to use different search terms, it's the same demonstration.
I'll try it differently.
Yes, please.
When was the last time you altered,
You silly American.
in any way, the demonstration you just gave?
Right now.
So you altered it right now, and that alteration was made after Celebrite had removed the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp from its programs, correct?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
That's it. That's it. He's so confused because he's like, I am Sir Ian Whiffen. I am a knight of all knights. I am the expert of all things Celebrite. I am Celebrite. Ah! He was so confused by the end of that. And it was so amazing and beautiful to watch because, simply put, it's like before this year's demo, you using all the same exact tools, and the previous version of Celebrite, before their update, or before you made a little update, or however that worked, the 2:27 a.m. search popped up. That's as simple as you can put it. And then this update happened, and even though it's showing up on all these other tools that you used, now it's suddenly disappeared from Celebrite into the Celebrite mega universe somewhere in the abyss. And Jessica Hyde, in Disney adult, Jessica Hyde seems to confirm the same exact thing.
The 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, correct, at this page location?
We've been talking about that for several pages. Yes, that's correct.
You're absolutely correct. We've been talking about it for several pages, and bear with me, I think this
No
may
problem.
be either the second to last or the last. So there you testified with regard, this was when you're referring to an artifact, you've agreed that timestamp is a fair synonym. You say on line 5, that means it wasn't in the regular database, it was in the write-ahead log. And to Celebrite's credit, that tool actually parsed the write-ahead log and displayed it where the other tools did not. So did I read that correctly, number one?
You read it correctly.
So am I correct that here, what you're stating is Celebrite was actually showing the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp at that time during your testimony in the first
On
precinct?
that date, that is correct,
Okay,
yes.
so I just wanted to establish that, and you were
Absolutely.
giving Celebrite credit for actually showing that timestamp at that time of 2:27:40 at the time of your testimony back in June of 2024, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so now let's go to page 1-36.
136, you said?
136, yes.
Thank you.
And on line 12, you note that so Celebrite and Magnet Axiom, and then you elaborate, both Celebrite Physical Analyzer, which is a specific tool, right, of
Correct.
Celebrite, and Magnet Axiom, another specific tool, correct?
Correct.
Both have file system viewers that then have SQLite database viewers. And you, skipping down to line 17, you talk about they don't allow for deep analysis of the write-ahead logs, which is why in my analysis I use the specialized Sanderson forensic browser for SQLite, correct? I read
That is
correct?
correct.
So is it fair to say that what you did up to this point in June of 2024, with regard to the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022, you applied a variety of tools to analyze the issue of when did the Google search occur, that you use the words associated with a Safari Google search, house long to die in the cold.
There's a little bit of wording I would correct there if that's okay.
Right, but so let me see if I can ask the question
That'd be
a
great.
different, more simple way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
My pronouns are he, she, we, wumbo.
you used a variety of tools to analyze that house long to die in the cold search, correct?
Plus manual analysis and testing, yes.
Plus manual analysis and testing. Alrighty, now let's
The face. This girl, I mean, if anything, what if anything, you gotta admit, she is a character for such a dull and boring, like, it really is. This stuff is not the stuff that really titillates my brain. This isn't the thing that gets me, going, but gotta admit, she is quite the character and deserves her own spot on, like, some sort of reality TV show. Put her on Traitors. Oh my God, she'd be great. Or in Big Brother, right? Karen Reed edition.
leave the testimony
Okay?
and let's go to your next report. And your next report is December 2024. Do I have
I have
the
it correct.
chronology correct, Ms. Hyde?
That is correct.
So in December of 2024, just approximately 6 months ago, you issued another report, correct?
That is correct.
And you got the request for that report also from the Norfolk District Attorneys, correct?
That is correct.
And you state in regard, well, that report regarded the analysis of the same timestamp, correct?
Correct.
To 22740 timestamp. And in that report, under relevant findings, you state, and this is December of 2024, so it's from your May 2023 report, it's approximately a year and a year and a half. Is that approximately from your May 23rd report? Approximately a year and a half?
Yes.
So a year and a half after what we just reviewed in your May 23rd report, and then just months after the testimony of June, right? So about 6 months after your
6 months later.
June testimony that we just went through,
That would be
you
it
went
now.
and looked at this issue again, correct?
That is correct.
And isn't it correct that when you were asked to look at the same timestamp in December of 2024, that Celebrite removed the timestamp from their tools?
Celebrite did remove that timestamp from the tool. That is correct.
Okay?
Boom.
And that timestamp,
Boom. Bobby Alessi for the win. I mean, he came. He came, he conquered. He came, and he conquered. Now, Jennifer McCabe aside, the most interesting part to me that came out of her gob during this testimony was regarding John O'Keefe's cell phone movement in the hours following when he was pronounced dead after it left Kerry Roberts. We knew she scooped it up when the paramedics were picking John O'Keefe up and she was grabbing the blanket, she grabbed his phone, but we never really had a clear idea of who she passed it off to because she couldn't recall, according to her testimony. Now, interestingly enough, this was confirmed today that she had passed it off allegedly to Officer Good, which was then given to Yuri Bukwacki. It seems like everybody was playing hot potato with John O'Keefe's phone.
We put it in the Faraday bag. A Faraday bag is an enclosure that blocks signals from coming to the device. This is so a remote wipe command couldn't be sent or so that more data isn't received to the phone because phones are live and constantly obtaining data. So we're going to have it with a battery pack in the Faraday, presuming it was on. Again, I don't know the status of this device. The next steps are going to depend on what state that device is and what make and model that device is and what the current support for that device is. There are multiple types of extraction methods of phones. In the modern day on iOS, a full file system image, what we had on the devices in question in this case, is considered the gold standard because it has the most robust information. So at this point, the next question is what's the best image type? And that's going to depend on if we have a passcode or if we don't have a passcode.
if I could,
Please.
and I'm going to allow you to continue.
Yeah, please.
I want to break it down for the jury. So what I now want to do, you've stopped at a certain point, but you've talked about securing, what I would call securing the phone, right? And then making sure that there's no data swipes. You talked about airplane mode, Faraday bag, Faraday box, right? Do you know whether any of those protocols were followed for either the iPhone of Jen McCabe or John O'Keefe?
As I mentioned, I was not there for those processes. I don't have documentation of it. As mentioned, what started where my receipt of the device is from the image.
Exactly. So you don't know.
You don't know whose grubby little meatball fingers were all over that device or those devices beforehand. Now, we already know that Jen McCabe deleted a bunch of stuff before she passed her phone off, right? But in terms of John O'Keefe's phone and what exactly had happened to it and who had happened to it, you know, there's the mysterious missing Ring camera footage, right, from One Meadows. And again, it just opens the room for reasonable doubt of, well, I mean, yeah, you just received the data that you were sent, right? And then based on that, you did your thing. But you don't know what steps were taken to preserve any of that data before you entered the chat.
I can't testify to processes I did not or was not available or aware of.
Fair enough. But do you have a little bit of hint as to whether the phone of Mr. John O'Keefe was properly secured in airplane mode, a Faraday bag, or a Faraday box, based upon your own report of the iPhone of John McCabe? Can you determine that from page 5 of your report?
Obviously, there is data signals that are still being made and created. I believe that is what you're referring to. So the assumption is that I don't know at which point a Faraday bag is employed, but I also want to be clear, I don't know when, I don't have information outside of the digital forensics realm about this case, so I don't know precisely when the phone was taken into custody by law enforcement.
Fair enough. So assume that Mr. O'Keefe was deceased around the latest 9 a.m. on January 29, 2022. Isn't there activity on that phone, health data activity, up to around noon of January 29?
Health data activity would continue to be reported regardless of if the device was isolated from the network or not. Health data has to do with the movement of the device, so if the device was being moved even within a Faraday bag, that data would still be populated.
How about location data?
Location data is unlikely to be reported in a device that is Faraday enclosed, but I do not know what location data you're referring to, so I cannot speak in absolutes without having a better reference to the artifacts in question. If you're saying it's in my report, I'll look at it, but again, I never knew when the phone was seized, so it was not part of my initial analysis. Do I have permission to look at that time? Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. So, bear with me, it's a big report, as you know.
It is a big report.
And it was at the bottom of my stack.
Pardon me?
All right, it was at the bottom of my stack. I had to lift up the other ones to find it. All right, so.
Your Honor, may I assist in pointing her to a page?
Sure. That'd be great.
Thank you. If you could turn to that report on your page 47 and continue on to page 50.
I do see incoming data that is consistent with the device not being Faradayed, such as the receipt of SMS messages, notifications from Ring, etc.
So, the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe was not secured in the manner you described before we got to this, as would be the best practice with regard to getting the most accurate data from a phone. That is, once it comes in, that it's to either be put in airplane mode, Faraday bag, or Faraday box. That's correct. By your own report, you see activity.
I do see activity. It was not Faradayed. Faraday prevents wiping of the device and additional data. So actually, in this instance, it doesn't appear that the device was at risk of wipe because it was not wiped. And we actually have more data because we get to see the data that continue to come into the device. I'm not saying that's in accordance with best practice. I'm saying that that's what I see based off of what you just had me review in the data.
It sounds like you're trying to justify.
Oh, I'm not
if
trying to
right or
justify.
wrong, you tell me. It sounds like you're trying to justify the fact it wasn't secured. Am I correct? Or
No, you're incorrect. I'm just stating we have, you asked if we had more data or less data. We actually have more data with it not being Faradayed, but no, best practice would be to Faraday.
That
I
wasn't my
100%
question.
agree.
My question wasn't, is there more or less data? My question was simply, doesn't your own report
Sure.
show activity up until noon on January 29, 2022?
Correct. And for clarity, my scope was till noon, so I don't know if there was activity beyond that.
Right, but as far as your scope goes, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
There is activity on this
Absolutely.
phone,
Absolutely. The
which
phone-
shows that it was not put in airplane mode, it was not put in a Faraday bag, and it was not put in a Faraday box, And that failure is not best practice.
Correct. It is not in accordance
Thank
with the
you.
best practices. I agree. I would have Faradayed it.
Thank you. So,
I would have loved to have seen the two of them go like face to face in like a student debate team. Like, this is gold. It's the battle of the nerds, because we don't really hear a lot of snark from Bobby Alessi. Usually he's a little bit more calm, cool, and collected, but this, I feel like this witness especially got under his skin, because she's pulling a lot of Jen McCabe like tricks, right? Like, very evasive and over explaining. And I don't know if it was just the nervousness of some of the questioning, some things that felt like it caught her off guard completely, that weren't, she wasn't cross-examined with last trial. So I don't know. I mean, but this was amazing, and it brought up such a good point. And I love that the defense, the big difference for me in this trial versus last trial is there was so much when it came to digital forensics, so much of a focus around Jen McCabe's phone and the 2:27 a.m. Google search. And while I think that's really important, what I think is more important is how often we can bring up John O'Keefe's name, right? How often can we utilize his cell phone data? And between the cross-examination about the location data and of John O'Keefe's phone, in relation to that Apple Health data, in relation to the temperature of the phone as well too, I feel like that, along with this argument around the Faraday bag and how these procedures and protocols that should have been taken in place, the digital science is telling us otherwise, that it wasn't properly secured between this specific time frame. And why is that? Why wasn't it automatically secured right away upon seizure? And who if anyone had their grubby little fingers all over it, right? Because we don't know, because there's no freaking chain of custody in this case at all. So I thought that was a really great way to kind of end. I think that was Recross, end her testimony and end on somewhat of a high note, I think. Yeah, there were a lot of parts, drips and drabs during her testimony that were a little bit more laggy and a little less interesting. But I really think that that honed things in and again brought the narrative back to John O'Keefe. It presents a much stronger case, and it takes away the focus from, some of the more dramatic aspects of the case, which, yeah, a lot of the Jen McCabe stuff is very important, obviously, but in my opinion, I think shifting the focus a little bit more towards John O'Keefe and utilizing that digital forensics is going to help make their case a whole lot stronger for the defense in the end. So, Jessica Hyde really is living up to her name in this one, folks, because it doesn't seem to be like she's hiding how many times she spoke to Brian Tully since May of 2023, when she was initially hired to do this gig, which is ironic considering, if you recall, how much of a stink Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan made about the Nothing Burger texts between ARCA expert Daniel Wolf and Alan Jackson.
You've been on this case working for the Commonwealth since May of 2023, correct?
May 4th, 2023, that is correct.
So you've been on this case for 2 years, correct?
Not actively the entire time.
But you started on this case in May 2023. You issued a report in
Correct.
May of 2023, correct?
Correct.
You issued a report in December of 2024, correct?
Correct, after being rehired in November.
Right, and you issued more reports in 2025, correct?
That is correct.
So all of that activity has been on this case, correct?
All on this case, that
and
is
that's
correct.
been all on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
That is correct.
None of that work has been done on behalf of the defense, correct?
That is correct.
So
I love this line of questioning, especially because you can see where they're going to be going with the ARCA stuff and how that's presented as well too, because they're saying like, well, yeah, rules for me, but not for thee, right? You're going to make a big stink about us bringing in our own experts because you don't like what they have to say. Well, you hired your own experts, and why do you need 50 million experts to explain away one simple thing, one thing that should be as simple as it either happened or it didn't happen. It was either deleted or it wasn't deleted.
Let us now go to the timestamp of 2/27/40. Your opinions on what is the meaning of that timestamp have varied from May of 2023 until today. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect.
Let's cover that issue.
Sure.
Let's turn to your May 2023 report. Isn't it correct that the report and your findings were pursuant to a request from Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully?
Correct.
And how many interactions have you had with Lieutenant Detective Brian Tully on this case approximately?
I really don't know. I'd have to go look back at email and call logs.
Is it more than 5?
Yes.
Is it more than 10?
Yes.
Is it more than 20?
I don't know.
So somewhere between 10 and 20, would that be fair?
Again, I'd have to review my call logs. I'm not
But it
going to
was
test.
more than 10.
More than 10, I'm sure.
That's interesting. So why wasn't the defense able to access those call logs, huh, hanky-panky? Between Tully and Jessica Hyde. And for how long were those phone calls taking place? Well, oh, it wasn't because it was between me. I'm just the special probiotic. I wasn't talking to her. But why was Brian Tully talking to her so many times? Especially between, not just between 2023 leading up to the first trial, but between 2023 and today. So why is that? And what was the duration of those phone calls? And it just so happens that yes, your opinion did change based on everything we just laid out previously in this video about the 2:27 a.m. timestamp. With that being said, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you do not miss the next video from me. And make sure you hit that like button because that tells the YouTube algorithm that what the Commonwealth is doing to Karen Reed, a factually innocent woman, is absolutely criminal. Now, before I go, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for all the kind words that you left on my community tab. Like I said, I have been dealing with some personal family things behind the scenes. My father-in-law just passed away, and it's been a huge shock to myself and my family as well too. But I always feel like when I'm going through a difficult time that it's best for me to bring laughter, right? To laugh about something. And even though this case is not a laughing matter at all. I mean, we have a factually innocent woman's life on the line, literally right now. And also, this poor man, Officer John O'Keefe, I mean, they're practically stomping on his grave for falsely persecuting somebody who had nothing to do with his death. But you have to find the light in the darkness. And if I can help bring that light from that darkness, and we can all kind of laugh together, then I think, not selfishly, that'll make me feel better, but hopefully it will too if you're going through something equally as difficult right now. So I will continue showing up. Like I said in my post, the scheduling, my scheduling is always wonky, so like, what else is new? But it'll be especially wonky over the next couple of days and week, so just bear with me, but I will be showing up because we need to show up for Karen Reed and Officer John O'Keefe. In the words of the great Jessica Hyde, may the 4th be with you.
May 4th, 2023 is the email I have of a note. Thank you. Yes. It's easy to remember because may the 4th be with you.
When you first were asked to begin